Good morning and welcome to TCS Film School. This module is an enabling learning objective in support of the terminal learning objective Planning 101. So this particular ELO is why bother to plan? And this is not even about planning for film production specifically, even though that's the bulk of the overall coursework. This module is focusing on why we should just plan in a very general sense. If you don't plan for things in life, you can't do the correct things on purpose and you can't repeat what you've been doing. And this is true for anything as simple as a grocery list. If you are going to the store and you just go to the store without making a list, you may or may not buy everything you need at home. You may or may not buy anything that you just don't need. And you're going to end up with, sometimes you'll get lucky, sometimes you won't. If you take 30 seconds to write down the things that you have at home and the things that you need, you can go to the store, buy exactly what you need on purpose, save yourself money, save yourself time, and get back home with the actual desired product that you want to have. So at the end of this lesson, you should be able to discuss the importance of planning just in a general sense. Here's our task conditions and standards for this. So again, our task title today is Why Bother to Plan? Our conditions for today are in an office environment and with no equipment whatsoever. And by the end of this lesson, you should be able to describe the positive impacts of planning and the negative impacts if you fail to plan. Planning 101, or how I learned to stop worrying and love the plan. Thank you, Dr. Strangelove. So the first thing that it can kind of be difficult to get in people's heads is this idea that plans are important. Again, people like to go out and just do it, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to get repeatable results on purpose rather than relying on being flashes of brilliance or getting lucky. Throughout history, the group that's probably been the most associated with planning has obviously been the military. If you fail to plan in the military, somebody is getting hurt, somebody's getting killed, or starting with Sun Tzu, your literal nation may cease to exist. So obviously they've got a long-standing history of planning on purpose because they've got to get things done. So this quote from Sun Tzu, victorious warriors win first and then go to war, while defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win, is an example of this idea. Like, we want to make sure that we're doing it on purpose. We have to win the war on anything before we even set out, because if not, all we're doing is we're throwing ourselves into the fray and just hoping for the best, which is a good, easy way to fail to accomplish whatever task it is that we're trying to accomplish. The next two quotes, and they're separated by well over a century, are "By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail" by Ben Franklin, and "Failing to plan is planning to fail" by Winston Churchill. Both these quotes are attributed to civic leaders and can be applied to either military or civil concerns. But the general idea here is running in the exact same vein. If you're preparing to do something, no matter with every moment of your life, you're preparing to do something. And if you're not preparing to win, what you're really doing is you're preparing to fail, to choose to not succeed at whatever the task it is because you didn't do the prep work in order to succeed on purpose. Again, you can get lucky, but we want to make sure that we are doing things that we want to do on purpose and not counting on whether or not luck has anything to do with it. This last quote is coming from Colin Powell, and it's "A dream doesn't become reality through magic. It takes sweat, determination, and hard work." Again, the same idea. You can't just have a dream. You have to have a dream, but that's not enough to go anywhere. And so beyond having this dream, we need to do the work in order to prepare to succeed at whatever it is. If it's a fitness goal that we have, I'm making this module at the beginning of the new year. A lot of people have that as their goal. You can't just want to be fit. You have to, do the diet, do the exercise. You have to put in the hard work at whatever your goal is if you're going to succeed. So the next thing that we're going to look at is, will we even use the plan? Because a lot of people are like, oh, well, I wanted to plan to do something, but life happens. Which is true, life happens. And that's true on a film set as it is in life. But so we've got these quotes here that are talking about this is true. Like, we've got no plan of operations extends with any certainty beyond the first encounter with the enemy's main force. From Helmuth von Moltke, who was a Prussian general just prior to World War I. And this is true. You don't know beyond your first step, the first time you step onto a film set or the first time you step into the grocery store, exactly what's going to happen. And if they're sold out of the milk you buy, you're going to have to make changes to your plan. Mike Tyson talks about everyone having a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Also true. It's very good to plan, but you have to make sure that you understand that you're not ever going to fight the plan. You're never going to go and have perfection in your plan. Except with the grocery list example, you probably will be able to go to Walmart or Schnucks or wherever you live at the appropriate grocery store. Usually you can go there and buy whatever you want. But anything more complicated than a grocery list, and you're probably going to have to make changes to your plan as you go along. This one comes from Werner Herzog, and it's probably my single most hated quote in filmmaking. Storyboards are the instruments of the cowards, with the idea like you don't want a storyboard, and this again getting specific to filmmaking, because you think that it has some negative impact on what you're going to be doing with your production. I strongly disagree with this quote, and hopefully throughout this planning 101 module, you'll get an idea of why I disagree with it. So if we know that we're not going to actually, quote, fight the plan that we're going to make, what's the point of even making a plan? And once again, we go to the military for some inspiration on this because they've got some answers to this as well. In preparing for battle, I've always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable, coming from Dwight Eisenhower. And then we don't plan because we expect to fight the plan. We plan because if we don't, we won't have any assets in place to do anything at all. This one actually comes from Robert Krieg, who you might not actually have any idea who that is. He was the commanding officer at the artillery school when I went there for Captain's Career Course, which is what leads into this vignette. So, I was an artillery officer. I did 8 years active duty. And for probably the first 3 years, we were doing a lot of target planning as fire support officers and in other roles. I never, and none of my other comrades ever really figured out, like, we know that the enemy's not going to be wherever we put these little tick marks on the map. What is the point of doing all this planning? Why are we bothering to plan if we know that we're never going to fire any of these targets? And so this is a target list worksheet. We would fill these out for any time we did anything, as this is positions and grids, and this is what we think is going to happen, and we know it's not, but we have to do this because someone told us we had to do it. It wasn't until I became a captain and went to the Captain's Career Course where I got that information from Lieutenant Krieg, and it's something that applies worldwide to anything you're going to do. Is this idea is that you're not planning because you think you're going to fight the plan specifically. You're planning because if you don't plan, then you won't have anything on hand to be flexible with. You won't have anything available to use to do whatever it is you end up needing to do. So in the artillery world, this came into, if you didn't plan targets, you didn't have ammunition allocated, you didn't have firing units in range, you didn't have airplanes in the air to drop bombs, you just didn't have anything. And so you knew you were going to need artillery and bombs during the operation, but they weren't available to you because you didn't ask for them at all. Filmmaking, this is the same thing. If you get on set and you've done no planning and you want a 30-foot jib shot, don't do an unplanned 30-foot jib shot. Someone on set should slap you. But you won't have the jib. You won't have the crane. You won't have the device to do it with. And so you can't get the shot. And now you're compromising your vision because you didn't do the planning ahead of time. And again, this goes throughout all of life. If you're going on a road trip, you're going to need money for gas. So it doesn't matter if you decide to go somewhere else as long as you're within the gas budget. You know that you put aside money in order to get you there and get you home. And so by planning at least a little bit, we're making sure that we have exactly what we need available in order to be flexible with our final objective. So another consideration that a lot of people have is, what if I make a mistake? Patton talks about this one with, a good plan violently executed right now is far better than a perfect plan executed next week. Usually, if we're in any situation, we have to do something. If we're going to the grocery store, we need dinner tonight, we have to buy something. We can't just get there, they're out of milk and, the avocados, and now we can't eat. We have to buy something now because we can't wait until later. Same thing for with the military objectives, with which Patton talks about here, and with filmmaking, we have to have something to react from, even though we know that plan is not going to be ultimately executed exactly as we thought it out. Another example here is no plan survives first contact with the enemy. What matters is how quickly the leader is able to adapt. This is from Tim Hartford, who's been doing writing on, again, military operations more recently. We know that we are not going to fight the plan. What we have to do is have some sort of plan, because that's what gives us the ability to react. If we fail the plan, we have fewer assets available to us to react in a meaningful way and get the objective accomplished, whether that be, again, grocery store, military objective, or filmmaking. What if I don't plan at all, which is what a lot of beginning filmmakers like to do? Like, I just want to go shoot something, which you will succeed in shooting something, but you will not shoot whatever it is you think that you're going to shoot if you don't plan. So, failing to plan, and again, these apply very generally, in addition to being specific to filmmaking, it will waste time. If you don't have a plan, whatever you're doing, you need to be doing something. And so if you're not making decisions ahead of time before you're thrust into the situation, you're making decisions using the time that could be used to accomplish whatever your objective is. It wastes talents. If you don't know what your friends and family or crew or whoever are capable of, because you haven't planned, you haven't asked them, then you might overcrew in the case of a film production. You might end up with the wrong person making the Thanksgiving turkey because they don't know how to cook turkey. They're a dessert person. There's 1,000 different ways that you can waste talent by not going through and doing the planning in order to make sure that you're applying the best talent possible to the solution in the most efficient way possible. It also wastes opportunities. This usually comes in the effect of you've wasted too much time accidentally doing something else, or you don't have the assets on hand that you need to in order to be able to capitalize on an opportunity. So sometimes and we're going to go back to filmmaking because that's the overall course, everything in this entire film is going to be locked down on a tripod. Cool. I'm a big proponent. If you don't know why the camera's moving, don't make it move. Lock it off. Leave it. But if you are on a film and you're doing a lot of handheld stuff, and then all of a sudden you just arbitrarily decide you want to go from a first floor shot to a second floor shot, either outside jibbing up, or if you're inside following up the stairs, and you've been doing everything handheld, and now you can't get that shot running up the stairs handheld, that's probably a Steadicam or some sort of Ronin type shot. Or you want to make something that's like actually physically impossible, where you can't just grow the camera operator 30 feet. You've got to do that with a jib. If you didn't think about that ahead of time, you don't have the supplies on hand necessary to do it. You also can compromise your vision, because you are, again, making compromises to account for all the stuff that you don't have because you didn't think about what you were going to need. It also degrades the final product. It doesn't matter if you're writing a book report in high school or if you're making a big budget feature film. If you don't plan, then you're going to be making these compromises to your vision throughout the entire process, and then the final product is not going to be what you want. It's going to be whatever you could get away with using whatever you were slapping together at the time, as opposed to putting together the specific assets that you laid on because you wanted to have them and you knew that they were going to be important. So some final thoughts on planning in general. Most people have heard of the 5 Ps. You can have 6 or 7. This gets kind of ridiculous, and it gets fairly inappropriate fairly quickly because people like to use some inappropriate terms in here, but we're going to stick with the 5 Ps that most people will be familiar with and are fairly non-offensive, which is prior planning prevents poor performance. I've most often heard that out of the mouths of athletics coaches, and again, it applies universally. You have to plan, or you are going to have poor performance. Another quote that I like that I didn't actually type into this is the idea that professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. Amateurs practice until they get it right. So if you know that you're going to be doing something, go ahead and practice until you can't get it wrong. Don't just get it right once and then move forward. Give yourself some time to make sure that you're going to get it right on purpose and consistently. Another thing to think about is virtually any mistake you make is almost certainly going to cost less if you make it in planning. Most of what we're doing in planning, obviously, is simply just writing stuff down. And a piece of paper almost always costs less than, somebody getting injured, running out of gas, getting into an accident, any of these sorts of things. If we plan ahead of time, we can't prevent all possible problems, but if we plan ahead of time, we can make more and more of these mistakes on paper or in our own heads, which is virtually free, as opposed to making them when there's a lot of money on the line. So here again is our ELO for why we are bothering to plan. Again, still the title is Why Bother to Plan. We talked about this. This is just a lecture environment on the computer. Hopefully you've got an idea now of the positive impacts of planning, again, just in general, and you're able to describe some of the negative impacts of failing to plan on whatever it is that you're trying to do. So this is TCS Film School. I'm presenting it as part of 105mm Productions. Thanks for tuning in and checking this one out, and stay tuned for our next one.